Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'd probably, just to give you a heads up, I guess, I'd probably be doing more readings out of the basic text or even the Living Clean book, but because I do the Just for Today and the Spiritual Principle a Day every day, I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes I actually do record some advanced ones, but But in the new year, I'm gonna try and read out of this book more frequently. Hopefully, as frequent as I do the other two readings. But I'm also doing 5 YouTube channels right now, and 2 of them are dedicated to recovery. One is just sort of a miscellaneous art channel, which was the initial channel I kind of started with, and then I've got one that's like I got one called A to Z Species and another one um, called Tune or Toontown, I think it's called. Yep, it's my own channel. I can't remember what they called it. Um, but anyway, hey everybody. Sorry for that little bit of a rant or mumble, whatever you want to call it. Um, my name is John Clayton. I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, and I've been clean and sober since February 21st, 2021. And if you're joining me today for the first time, then welcome. You're the most important person here. It's true, you are. If you've been here before, then welcome back. I'm glad you keep coming back. I really appreciate it. Yeah, what's the date today? It's December 13th. Craziness. So today's reading is called The Point. This addict from the wrong side of Chicago's South Side lost his best friend and his marriage to the disease of addiction. Recovery hasn't restored the things he lost, but it has helped him make amends. My sponsor says this is an example of God showing off. I'll tell you the story and let you decide. My best friend's mom never liked that we hung out together. She'd tell him not to bring that curly-headed boy to the house. I lived on the wrong side of Chicago's South Side. He lived in a neighborhood favored by the folks who wanted a better and safer environment for their children. But he and I were tight. And we did most everything together. We were both adopted, and we looked like we felt the brothers we never had. I joined the army at the tender under age of 16. My home life was insane. The family that adopted me, a half-black baby from a German orphanage, had become a pretty dysfunctional alcoholic scene. My second stepdad used to beat my mom in drunken stupors, and then she'd beat me. One day, following a particularly brutal display of codependent relationship dynamics, I came to the conclusion that if this was love, you could have my share. I knew that I could no longer live in that house. I walked into an army recruiter's office on a Thursday, and Sunday night I was in Fort Polk, Louisiana. 5 months later, I was injecting heroin in Amsterdam, Holland. 4 months after that, I was honorably discharged. I had told them I was underage. It had become too hard to keep up a heroin habit and to do duties the Army expected every day. I came back to Chicago and started going to college. My friend and I became roommates. The winter of 1975 was cold. The notorious Chicago winds were blowing hard, and the temperatures was below zero every day. On the day after Christmas, we were in our basement apartment with our coats on to fend off the cold. watching television and smoking weed, a tropical scene came on the screen showing sunny California with the beach, palm trees, and a beautiful woman driving a convertible Mercedes. I looked excuse me. I looked out our window, then looked at the TV and told my friend, "Enough of this weather. I'm going to California." He immediately agreed, and we left Chicago that weekend to pursue all the promises that sunny California offered. We arrived in San Francisco on a cold, wet, windy January afternoon. It was nothing like the TV showed. It was almost as cold as Chicago. I wondered if I had made a mistake. Nevertheless, we made the best of it and settled into our new life. He decided to go to college and work on a degree. I decided to immerse myself in the huge underground drug scene. My life became, as our literature describes, I lived to use and used to live. I was going in and out of jail, and my friend was continuing in his education. He had hooked up with a nice little square girlfriend. I had a girlfriend too, but she certainly wasn't a square. She was my using buddy, and together our addiction flourished. In 1982, my son was born. He was the answer to my prayers. Having been adopted, I had never known anyone who was blood related to me. I wanted to be a good dad, but my addiction would not allow anyone or anything to come before it. I had a primal need to use every day at any cost. I remember how guilty I felt when my son walked into a room and I had a belt wrapped around my arm, or when he fell asleep waiting for me to come out of the bathroom. When I was nodding off, he meant the world to me. When I was nodding off, he meant the world to me, and this was the best I could do. One day, that same friend called me to hook up and get high. He was the closest addict. He impersonated a square in the daytime and would occasionally come to my dark side of the world at a night and use. There was some dope on the street at the same that was overdosing people, and I copped a few bags for us. We both shot up and we both passed out. I woke up and looked over to see my friend still out. I tried to revive him, but he wouldn't come to. I staggered to the lobby and asked someone to call 911. The ambulance came and took him to the general hospital. They took him out like they were taking out garbage. I guess they had seen so many addicts that they had lost any semblance of compassion. The cop looked disgusted as he asked me if I wanted to come along. I told him I would be there shortly. I went back to the room and did another shot. That is the insanity of my disease. I woke up about 6 hours later with a needle hanging out of my arm. I remembered that I had to pick up my friend from the hospital. When I called from the lobby to find sorry about that. When I called from the lobby to find out which room he was in, I was informed that he had died. I couldn't believe it. I loved him, and he was gone. I felt so bad and guilty for my role in his death. Fuck. Sorry about that. Actually, I thought that God was reaching for me and picked him by mistake. I was devastated. I called his girlfriend, and I can still hear her screaming into the phone. My addiction became suicidal. I overdosed all the time, always disappointed that I woke up. I remember crossing the street so people who knew me wouldn't see how I had gotten. All I did was use, but I couldn't use enough to make the pain go away. And I didn't know there was another way. I didn't know that addicts like me got clean. No one came to the Tenderloin area of San Francisco to 12 step any of us. I had no clue about Narcotics Anonymous. One morning I was sitting on the dock of the San Francisco Bay in a deuce and a quarter that I never put more than $2 worth of gas in. I was about 5:30 a.m. My 3-year-old son was in the back seat and his mom was in the front seat begging me to get them something to eat. All night long I had been shooting speedballs of heroin and cocaine. I knew that once I shot up, we would need to go get more money to use. She didn't know that we were broke since we started the night with over $600. I wrapped the belt around my arm and looked in the rearview mirror. I told my son to turn over because the rule was he couldn't watch me shoot up. He looked lovingly at me and smiled, and then looked in the mirror at myself, and I had a proverbial moment of clarity. I saw that I had become my teeth. Sorry. I saw what I had become. My teeth and eyes were yellow. My face was broken out. My hands were swollen with track marks all over them. There was blood on my jeans, and my neck was green from wearing a fake gold necklace. I was a mess. Then I looked again at my son. He was peeking at me, smiling, and I knew that if I kept using, he didn't have to have a chance. I knew I would never teach him how to drive or play baseball or tie a tie or get ready for the prom or ride a bike. I didn't care about my own life, but I realized that it wasn't fair to deny him of a life. I looked at his mom. I was leading her right to hell. Then I did something. Then I did something right to the moment. I cried out, "God help me!" That was the first time I genuinely asked for my higher power's help to stop. I had wanted to stop for years, but didn't know how. That cry for help, my drugs, and convinced my sobbing girlfriend that we needed to go get some money to use again. I know now that God's delay is not God's denial. I was arrested that day and sent to jail. In jail, it was arranged for me to go into treatment. My brief stint in the military qualified me for a veterans program. It was there that I was introduced to Narcotics Anonymous. Oh, I'm a blubbering fool right now. I am so grateful for H&I meetings because that's how I was introduced to the program that would save this addict's life. The first the first Narcotics Anonymous meeting I went to, I knew that I was home. Oh, excuse me, I gotta blow my nose. Okay. Sorry about that. The first Narcotics Anonymous meeting I went to, I knew that I was home. I saw addicts like me recovering. I realized that it was possible to live free from our addiction. I was given hope. Where I had been hopeless, I was given tools where I had been helpless. I was given a family where I had been alone. I was excited at the possibility of having another chance at life. I got a sponsor, and he told me that he loved me, no matter what. He has been my only sponsor for the last 19 plus years, and he has continued to love me no matter what. I got custody of my son when I was 2 years clean. I was able to teach him to ride a bike, go to Cub Scouts meetings, and eventually to drive and even to tie a tie. His mom decided to continue to use, and she still struggles. Back when I had 3 years clean, I was doing an inventory on my mother who had adopted me. She had died during my addiction, and I was so resentful that I didn't even go to her funeral. In the course of my inventory, I realized that much of my resentment was really hurt. I find it easier to be angry than to be hurt. I wrote an amends letter and went to Chicago to read it at her gravesite. Before going to the cemetery, I stopped at a little beach on Lake Michigan that we called the Point. I sat there and worked on my letter and swam in the water for the first time in my young recovery. I began to feel serene. The critical voice in my head seemed to quiet down. I felt an overwhelming sense of peace and calmness. I spent a whole day there basking in the sun, light, and my newfound serenity. Being at the point, I had never had this kind of impact on me before. As I felt as as I left and was driving, I realized that I was never near my old friend's house. Something something told me to go see his mom. I, I hadn't seen her since his funeral, where she could hardly even stand to look at me. I wanted to tell her that I was clean and that I was sorry. Sorry. I rang the doorbell and no one answered. So I wrote a little note on one of my business cards. I had started a career as a substance abuse counselor. The note said, "Dear Miss C, I just wanted to let you know that I'm a member of Narcotics Anonymous, and I'm clean over 3 years. And I work at helping other people get clean. I'm sorry for what happened to, and I miss him very much. Love." I dropped a note in the mail slot on the door and walked back to my car. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know why it hit me so hard. Before I get to my car, a gentleman opened the door and called me back. He was her new husband, and he didn't know me. He invited me in and seated me on the couch. A few moments later, my friend's mom walked in the room and was visibly shocked to see me. He handed her the card. She said silently, oh my god. Okay, sorry, I gotta clean myself up. Okay, I'm really sorry about this. I don't know why it does. It really hit home for me, this particular story. We're almost through it though, okay? Where was I? He handed her the card, and she silently read it. Then she started weeping. She opened her arms to me, and we hugged and both began to sob. She asked me if her son knew how much she loved him, and I assured her he always did. She told me she had always blamed me for his addictions, but realized that she had always had those addict traits and it wasn't my fault. She said she was happy that something good came about from his death. We then went into the basement and she gave me pictures and we told stories about my friend and her son. We laughed and cried and hugged. It was an incredible healing experience. As we were saying our goodbyes, she told me, before you go, be sure and visit the point because that's where we spent, that's where we spread his ashes. I cried again because I realized that I just had what was the first of many spiritual awakenings in the program of Narcotics Anonymous. Today, my life is a gift. I'm coming up on 20 years clean. I've been married for 15 years and have another wonderful son. I met my German birth mother 10 years ago and now have a family of blood relatives. My heart has been awakened and I have learned how to love and be loved. I have been working in treatment for over 18 years and I've written 2 books for African Americans. I just returned from NA 31st World Convention in Hawaii, where I was reminded of how this program is changing the world one addict at a time. Thanks to NA from the bottom of my heart. Oh, wow, that's a that's an intense story. If you haven't noticed, I haven't. I mean, I've read this story once when I was still in treatment, and it affected me pretty hard then. I think it's I think it's because I don't know really know. I've tried examining it before because there's a lot of people in my life who have died from this disease, and you know I had 8 close encounters myself just in a year's time. Well, during my last year of addiction, actually. So I'm very fortunate to be alive, and and the fact that I'm working every day to try and change my life for the better, and it's hard. It's not obviously. It's one day at a time, and there was a debate on whether or not I was going to. After I mean, it took 3 cuts to make this video, and this is probably the rawest you're ever going to see me. I'm going to warn you of this now, because I debated on whether or not I was even going to bother doing this video because of how badly it has affected me. But the one thing my recovery has taught me is that I can't hide behind my emotions, however raw they may get. I'm a weak-minded person who's trying to gain strength wherever he can, with whomever he can. And I know I need to get to more meetings. I don't make it as often as I'd like to, not because I don't want to, only because my time management is horrible. Especially if you were to look at the timestamps for all my videos, it's not like, they're done at any situated time. Maybe I need more routine like that. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out day by day, and I don't have anybody guiding me. So I am going to leave this video in. You are going to get to see my raw emotion. So, thank you for joining me today. I apologize for how. I mean, I guess I don't need to apologize for being emotional because it is a pretty strong story. But I don't know, I make so many connections to it. And the fact that I'm now 3 years, well, almost 4 years clean is a miracle in itself. So I think I've said enough. I appreciate every one of you. I don't know if I said it in the beginning, but if I didn't, my name is John Clayton. I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. And if nobody's told you today that they love you, well, I love you. And we'll see you all again real soon. Okay. Bye for now.